Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everyone for coming. My name is Brent Wilkinson. I'm Associate Director of Immigration at Calvin, which means I help international students get visas to come here. And the thing that you'll learn from this presentation is that getting the visa to come here, that's just one part of it. When things get really interesting is once you're actually here. And there are all these regulations that you have to follow and all of these ways that the government finds to make extra challenges for international students. And the purpose of this presentation, it's not to say like America is bad or we're so mean to international students. Like, that's not what we're trying to say here. I think if there's one thing that I'd like you to take away from this, it's that international students have extra challenges on top of everything that US college students have. And if we can remember that when we're in the classroom, if we can remember that when we're in conversations about billing and advising and all of the little advisory things and housing and that kind of thing, one of the things I appreciate about Calvin is that a lot of people are aware of those things. But even myself, like I work with international students every day, and I have to remind myself, like, be gracious, students are going through a lot. So that's the main message to just sum it up briefly. So we'll get started. I'm gonna talk for maybe 10 minutes or so and just give an overview of some of those challenges, legal challenges, cultural challenges, that kind of thing. And then we'll move into the good part, which is our student panel. We've got 6 students who will be joining me today, and they'll just be sharing some of their stories. Some of them are in class still right now, and they'll be coming a little bit later, so if you see people trickling in, that's planned. So great, we'll get started. So the differences start from the very beginning with coming to Calvin. So with US students, you fill out the Calvin app or the Common application, send in your high school transcript. SAT and ACT are optional, but they're helpful for scholarships and stuff. A lot of people like to do them. You fill out the FAFSA, and then you're in. There's a little bit more to it than that, but this is the basic outline. With international students, you do all the same stuff, and then the Calvin financial aid form. Then you also have to do a language test if you're not from an English-speaking country. You go through financial verification. This is required by the government before we can move on to visa processing. You have to show that you're able to pay for the education, which can be a difficult thing to do because you have to show, like, technically they can ask you to show that you have all 4 years of funding, but usually they just limit it to 1, thankfully. But it's just another step. You have to get a passport. You have to keep that passport valid. In some countries, it can take a very long time to get a passport. Just this past year in the US, it took a very long time to get a passport. You also have to pay an extra fee for the visa stuff. It's like $350. There are visa fees, which range anywhere from $160 at the lowest to quite a bit more, depending on the country. You have to get an immigration form. You have to fill out your visa application. So right from the beginning, there are just more steps for international students to get here and more things that they have to do. There are also other challenges that aren't really related to the processes, such as different academic cycles. Certain countries like Brazil, South Africa, Australia, their school year starts in January instead of in August. And so like that can mess up the nice cycle of you finish your classes, you have a nice 3-4 month summer break, and then you go to college. It messes up that rhythm. But on top of that, you also find yourself trying to work with offices that aren't really used to having people coming at different times. And so they might not be prepared of like, okay, we think people come in fall, and then you're trying to come in January, and they're just not set up for that, and they're not really expecting that. So that can cause some extra challenges. There can also be internet difficulties in a lot of countries when the application is online and you're losing your internet connection or it goes out for several weeks. If there's a military conflict in your country, if the government is just deciding to do things in your country, or sometimes things just don't work. On top of this, a lot of our students at boarding schools will have no internet connection. I know in Nigeria and maybe Ghana, the boarding schools, students don't have internet access while they're at school. So they have to fill out all of their application stuff when they're home over break. And that can move things back and slow things down for them. Access to standardized tests can also be difficult. If you're in a metropolitan center, maybe you have ACT or TOEFL tests offered regularly. But if you live out in the country, it can be hard to get those at regular times. And again, that can just slow down the process for you. Some of our students will even travel into a city, spend the night or several nights in the city, and then wake up and take the test. And that just doesn't help with your scores when you have to do it in a strange place and you're not staying at home, that kind of thing. Banking systems also vary a lot from country to country. And so when we do that financial verification that we talked about before, it sounds really simple. You get a bank statement, you submit the bank statement, we check it, and then you're good. But in certain countries, it can be hard to get a bank statement. There's just different systems. In certain countries, they don't really see a need for that, and so it can be a hard thing to get. So that's up to getting to your visa. To get a visa, there are certain criteria that some of them are straightforward, like the ability to cover all costs, which is straightforward but difficult to show. You also have to show that you have specific reasons for studying in the United States and specific reasons for studying at Calvin. And then you have to show something that's very difficult to show, which is the intention to depart the US. How do you prove that you want to do something 4 years from now? I don't know. It's really hard. And so what this ends up causing is that visa decisions can be very arbitrary. I respect the Department of State. They have a very hard job of processing tons and tons and tons of visas every year. They get tons of applicants. Fraud is real. They have to be checking for that. But at the same time, a lot of the criteria are just arbitrary. So we get students who are denied for no good reason. Sometimes if a student is nervous going into the interview, that might be why the officer decides to deny the visa, if something doesn't line up perfectly. So yeah. Another part that makes this a little bit arbitrary is that approval rates are based on estimated overstay. So the Department of State looks at how many student visas are granted in a year, and then they have kind of this leaky system of like who has left the country and how long they thought they should have been here and how long they actually were here. And so they estimate the overstay, but they don't actually know the overstay rates for each country. And so when they say, oh, we think that this country has a 30% overstay rate, well, then we need to put a 30% denial rate on these visas. Which again, it's just kind of arbitrary. Like, they have a difficult job to do. They're trying to keep Americans safe. They're trying to prevent people from coming who aren't supposed to come. But it does get very arbitrary and very unfair in a lot of cases. Another strange thing about the visas is that the validity varies by country. Some are valid for as little as 1 month. Some are for 5 years. The good thing is that you only need the visa to enter the US, but so once you're here, it's not like you only can stay for 1 month. That's not how that works. Like, you get it, you come during that month, and then you can stay as long as you're studying. But if you want to go home at Christmas break or over the summer, then you have to get another visa to come back if you got one of those very short ones. So those are challenges getting into Calvin, challenges coming to campus, and then once you're here on campus, there are also extra challenges for international students. Students have, part of their status here to stay legally, they have to take at least 12 credits per semester. And this can be hard if you're facing mental health challenges, if you get into a class and you realize, oh, this is much harder than I expected, if you have a tough semester. I mean, most US students, they do take at least 12 credits to stay on track to graduate, but they at least have the option of dropping classes when things get tough, or dropping classes when life circumstances make things harder for them. With international students, they have to stay with at least 12 credits per semester. Otherwise, they lose their status and have to leave the United States. Pardon me. On-campus employment is limited to 20 hours per week during the school year for international students. And again, most US students, they only work up to 20 hours per week, but they have the option if they have some extra time. Maybe they have a lighter week 1 week and they want to work extra that time and then take it easy the next week because they have a big test coming up. US students can do that. They have some more flexibility. But with international students, 20 hours, hard and fast limit. The other place where this becomes difficult is when students they have their schedule planned out and they're like, okay, I've got it set for 20 hours per week. And then the person who's supposed to relieve them on their shift doesn't show up. And they think they're doing the right thing. They stick around for 15, 20 minutes until the person comes and relieves them. But that bumps them over 20 hours per week, and now they're in trouble. So a lot of these things, like it's amazing just how strict it is and how high the stakes are, so that even a small mistake can have really big consequences for an international student. Students also have to wait until they get their social security number before they can get paid. This often takes 2 to 3 months. Just another little thing, another stressor. Off-campus employment for international students always requires authorization. So they have to get permission to work off campus, and the only kind of authorization they can get means that the work has to be directly related to their major. This gets especially complicated for people in pre-professional programs. Like if you're a pre-med major, there's not a major for pre-med at Calvin, so you're in the pre-med program and you need to get all these clinical hours to get into med school, but you can't just do something that's related to pre-med. You have to do it related to whatever your major is. So if your major is biology, you can usually find things that kind of overlap, but it really has to be biology related. Or if it's chemistry, it might be even harder. You can find some things that overlap with pre-med, but chemistry is the criterion that you're looking for. And so it just makes it more difficult. It's also unfortunate for interdisciplinary things. The off-campus authorization cannot be based on your minor. It has to be the major. If you just want to try an internship or a job that's outside your major, you don't have that option. As an international student, it has to be related to the major. And there's strict deadlines for all of these things. If you work one day early before your authorization begins, or if they have a mandatory training before the work begins, that can cause real headaches for international students. There are also gray areas. These are kind of frustrating because you have things that are legal, and you have things that are illegal, and you have things that are not illegal at the moment. So as a US citizen, in the Constitution, like, you cannot be charged for a crime that wasn't a crime when you committed it. So if tomorrow they pass a law saying ham sandwiches are illegal, and you ate a ham sandwich today, you're safe. They cannot charge you with a crime because today it's not a crime. With international students, where this becomes a problem is that there are laws that affect what they can and cannot do, but there's also another layer of interpretation by Department of Homeland Security. And so the guidelines governing that interpretation is really dependent on who's in the White House, because they name the Secretary of Homeland Security. I think it's the Secretary. And they name all the people going down who make those decisions on the guidelines. And so what is legal at the moment is often, there are the gray areas, but what can be legal now can depend on an interpretation later. And so there are situations where a student will come to my office and say, hey, can I do this thing? It often comes down to like working on campus and off campus. And so I'll tell them, okay, here's the absolute safest thing to do, which is a pretty strict interpretation of the law. Here's something that is legal, and by the current interpretation is okay, but 5 years down the road, when you apply for a green card or citizenship or H-1B work authorization, and if the interpretation has changed at that point, that's where you might get in trouble. So legal, illegal, not illegal right now. And it just makes things harder. There are other challenges too that have nothing to do with the laws. Culture shock is a big one. I mean, coming to college, like, you can have culture shock as an American if you're not used to the certain subcultures that are here. But you add on to that coming from another country. If you haven't spent time in the US, there are just all different things that can make the transition difficult. Jet lag, this is temporary, but it comes at really important times of the year. When you're starting off your classes and you're getting the syllabus, especially if you're a freshman and like just getting started, it makes it hard. Like, it's hard to concentrate, it's hard to stay focused, it's harder to use another language when you're tired. And so jet lag, it's a real challenge. It also comes, like I said, at the beginning of the semester when you're just like, okay, what is this new class that I'm taking? What does this new professor want from me? And you're trying to figure all that out. Jet lag doesn't help. Distance from family and friends. Again, this is a challenge for Americans too. But for most international students, it's even greater. You can't just call up mom and dad to come pick you up on the weekend, or people can't just stop by and visit and bring food or those sorts of things. It's just more difficult. Currency fluctuations can be a big challenge. So you do that financial verification at the start in order to get your visa, and you say, yep, I'm all set. I know my financial aid package. I'm ready to pay for all of this. And then if the currency tanks in your country, well, you were prepared. You did plan ahead. You did nothing wrong. But now that your currency isn't worth as much, you can't pay. And that's a huge stressor. That's really difficult. Racism, just because you're from another country doesn't mean that you don't experience racism. So that's another challenge. Something I call a million little things. This is related to culture shock, but just every day when things are just a little bit different from what you're used to, and you know some things are different to expect, and you're like, okay, I know this is different. This is how people here think. This is what we expect. But there are also things that you just don't know, or things that you're not really sure that, like, they don't show up in culture books or guidebooks or in orientation. Someone invites you to coffee. Do they really mean, hey, let's get coffee sometime? How do you know when they really mean it? How do you know when someone is being friendly or when they're flirting with you? Just all of these little things that can make life more challenging, and yeah. And on top of that, there's everything that US college students face. International students are also facing them. Growing up, having your beliefs challenged, meeting new people, being in a new place, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, all of that stuff is also present for international students. So that's just an overview of some of the challenges. All of that is kind of in the abstract. Now we'll move into the panel time. We've got 5 or 6 international students here who agreed to just answer some questions and share some of their stories. So I'm really grateful to all of you guys. If you just want to come up to the front here, and we'll grab a seat and move into that part. We have enough chairs. Cool. I'm going to grab one more because I think Nana is going to join us in a little bit. She's in the class right now, but cool. If you just want to start with your name and where home is for you, I know for some people that might be like multiple places. You can answer that question however you'd like, but just your name, where's home for you, and maybe what you're studying. Do you want to start us off, Eduardo?
Yeah, you just said my name. Hello everyone, my name is Eduardo. I'm from Honduras. I'm studying biochemistry. I'm in the pre-med track. I'm a senior this year, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, welcome all and thank you for coming.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Visako. I'm also a senior studying biochemistry in the pre-med track, and I'm from India.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and I'm from Pakistan and I'm studying finance.
Thank you for coming, guys. My name is Aviva Philip. I am also from India and I'm studying social work with a specialization in pre-law.
My name is Ide. I was born and raised in Argentina, but my parents are South Korean, and I am a sophomore studying biology on the pre-vet track.
So first question, if you could just tell us about your experience getting a visa to the US. So what was it like for you? And you can answer that again, however you'd like. Anybody want to start?
I applied during the COVID time, so fall semester I did online, and then spring semester I came here, but I remember that I was not believing COVID was going to be a thing. It was March, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Calvin in, June, July, I'll be here. But then the visa offices were closed, and then we just had to hire an agent to do all the work because it was really difficult for us to keep checking on things and making sure that. Luckily, I got my interview for the embassy in November. Then I plan to come here in January. But,
Do you remember the actual interview itself?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I am an awkward person, so it was super awkward, I guess. I don't know, but it was nice. They did ask me what were my plans after, and I think my parents have kind of given me this list of questions that they ask, but they prepare me already ahead to say, okay, this is what you cannot say, this is what you should say. So I did that. I was they asked me, what's your plan? And I said, well, I'm gonna come back to India. I'm gonna serve my family back in India. They are missionaries, and that's my plan as well. So that's what basically my answer was. But I think I was so used to that answer that this time when I was back home and I was planning to come here, I accidentally said the same thing that I say to the US people. And in India, we have a Hindu majority government, so it is very hard for missionaries and NGOs to, do their work, do God's work there. So I accidentally said it to them, and the government has reached back to our organization, and they've started a whole, search for our organization. So it is hard to even maintain that balance in your head that, oh, you cannot say this in your country, you can say this in this country.
Yeah, I can share. So I was also applying during the COVID year. So I graduated from high school around May of 2020, and I wasn't sure how long the pandemic was going to last. And so I had come to America before. So I came when I was a sophomore in high school, and the visa application process didn't seem too bad. I applied, I think, I applied, and then I think after I sent my application, they called me for an interview in 2 months' time. So I was expecting something similar. I could actually determine the date of my interview also. So I was expecting something similar when I was doing this application process today. um, when the pandemic struck, like, and I was like, I think I applied too late around May, which is not too late in normal times, but when I applied in May, there were just no dates available. So I was like looking to see where I could find a possible date. But the next available date was around December, so that was like after my first semester of university, right? So I didn't end up coming to Calvin in my first like in the first semester. I studied. Calvin did this really nice thing called the international cohort, so they all had a lot of international students come together and study online. So we did that. And then when December came, that was when COVID was peaking in India. So then the embassies again were not accepting any applications. It's not like I was even getting an interview. Like the available dates were not even showing in the website. So then I was looking again, I tried doing like this expediency interview. That didn't work. And then as the spring semester progressed, I was worried I would have to spend another year online. But then by God's grace, an interview spot just opened up in July, and I had to be in school by August. And then, so I somehow got the interview spot in July. I got the interview, it went well, and then 2 weeks before the date of my travel, I got my visa. And then I flew off from here, from India.
Kind of a similar experience with the embassy, because obviously COVID, and then the embassies were basically closed. They were not even doing any interviews, no appointments. And so I got my interview date for the last week of December, and then I had to be in school for the spring semester. But like even way before that, the application process was so, I don't know, like tiring. Because also, I don't know, I'm not like too sure now, but like when I was applying, like credit cards are not a huge thing in Pakistan. So like the embassy wanted us to go to a specific bank, in a specific branch of a specific bank, to pay the fees, and there's this whole like documentation about that too. So just like to get my appointment, I had to do all that, you know, prerequisite work first, and then like fill out my application, and then yeah, so the embassies were closed, and we had to like wait a long time. The office was just completely closed. Yeah, so it was just a long wait time to get an appointment, and then yeah, I got my visa like a little less than a month before I had to travel, which is not like terrible, but yeah, really uncertain.
So if I had to, So if I had to define the whole process, I would say it's a stress and anxiety. So for a lot of people for applying to schools in the U.S. So it's very similar. My experience with theirs, because it was also for me during the COVID year. The embassy was closed in Honduras. I tried for the second time to go to the embassy. I had an appointment on October, but during those days it was because I wanted to come to the U.S. next semester and just explore campus. Just I knew it was gonna be a different experience. Yeah, so the second appointment, it got canceled because of some floodings that we had in Honduras back in those times. So everything wasn't just working out. So I was like asking God, what's going on here? Like I really want to go to the U.S., but it's just complicated right now. So he made a way, and it just every time I remember these stories, I just gotta give all glory and honor to God, because He's the one who made it possible. So on December, I got the appointment, and yes, I got the visa, but at the same time, I just, as I was telling you, there's this stress and anxiety of thinking about how you're gonna be able to cover all the costs that you need to pay for a lot of things besides that scholarship amount that Calvin gives you. So yeah, I was kind of stressed and anxious about that. And I took the flight. I remember, actually, I gotta tell you something. I went to Hope my first semester. I was at Hope. I forgot to say that. Sorry. I'm a traitor. No, I'm kidding. So this is just so interesting because the way that God makes things work is just so amazing. So I remember I took that January before classes began, they had orientation at Hope. And I was like, I'm still gonna take the flight. I don't know how I'm gonna pay for the rest, but I'm just gonna trust in the Lord. So that's something definitely that He taught me. It was trusting in Him. And then I got to the U.S. I was at Hope for 2 weeks during orientation, but during those 2 weeks, I was able to get in contact with Calvin and the Lord made it possible. I'm here, so I'm the good side now. No, I'm kidding. I love Hope too. So, but yeah, it was quite a chaotic time. It was stressful and there was a lot of anxiety. But at the same time, you just ask yourself what do you learn from those experiences and how do you put God into that equation? Because that's the most important part of it. So.
Do you want me to?
If you want to, you don't have to. But.
So for me, it was a little different because it was kind of like when COVID was dying down a little. So like there were restrictions in place, but it wasn't like the embassy was closed or anything like that. I do remember though, I was like, at the moment, I was 17, so I wasn't like a legal adult yet. And I thought I could go into the embassy on my own. And I couldn't, and then like I had to have a parent or like some guardian with me. And we weren't like expecting that. So I remember with my mom, we like ran to like a cafe to like leave our phones and stuff because you can't like take anything with you. And then we were just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but like I have to go to the embassy. Can we just leave this here real quick? So it was like a lot of pressure and it was kind of stressful because I didn't want to be late to my appointment, but also like I had to figure this out. And then when we got to like the actual interview, I was even more nervous because like the people in front of me weren't doing that good. Like their interviews were not going well. So I was like, oh no. But then thankfully like everything ended up going pretty well and it was like a really smooth process. I got really nervous. I was stuttering so bad, but like I ended up getting my visa. So that was good, and I think it was very stressful, like when I was filling out the applications and stuff, because I was really paranoid that I would get like a detail wrong and like that would affect my application overall and that kind of stuff. But like overall, I think it was a pretty good experience for me. So it was like anxious. I was anxious and like it was very stressful, but it could have gone much worse, so I'm very like lucky and blessed. Yeah.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh. Hi, I'm Nana, and I am a super senior. Yeah, what else? So just my experience?
Yeah, just getting your visa.
Okay, so I came to Calvin in 2017, so I've been here for like a while. I didn't really experience any like issues, I would say. I know I was really like waiting for my I-20 to come because I needed that for my application and I applied to 20 schools. So I was like, it was a long process for me as well because I applied to a lot of schools, but I know I wanted to go to a Christian school and like a small school. So I was like, oh, Calvin. And Calvin came to my high school, so I was like, I got to experience like people asking questions and knowing more about the school. So it was like, I think I want to go there. And like they were showing pictures. So yeah, so that's how I was able to decide that I wanted to come here. So when my I-20 came, I applied to do biology in Calvin. But when my I-20 came, it had psychology. So I thought it would affect my application because I think I put biology for everything. So I just decided to see what was on the I-20. So I went to the embassy and like somewhere in May or June, and yeah, everything went well, and I got here. So yeah, it was a smooth process, but like yeah.
Thanks. My next question for you is, how have U.S. regulations affected your life now that you've been here in the States? So like getting the visa is just one part of the process, and then you get here, and there's all these rules. Has that affected you? And if so, in what ways?
So I'm a senior doing social work, so I have to do a 400-hour feeding placement. Luckily, I got an opportunity to work at Calvin with sexual violence prevention education ambassadors at Calvin, the supervisors right there. So it was nice that I got to, do it here. But then knowing that it's a paid job that became an internship for me meant that I only have to, my limit is 20 hours a week. I cannot go more than that. And it is hard for me knowing that I have 400 hours. How do I balance that? How do I so for me already, I have to really organize my life. Next semester ahead, how many hours can I actually do? How many commitments can I have? So I think in that sense, I have been balancing a lot, and it's been a circle for me. So that's just an example of, yeah.
And I think you mentioned earlier about this, but it's kind of hard to explore other avenues when it's you're so strict about sticking to your major. Like when you're looking for internships, it just has to be related to your major. And so if I want to, explore something else, that's just not an option, realistically.
I think for as a student in the pre-med track, there are a lot of things you need to get done in general, in order to be a strong applicant for medical school. And then you add on top of that the fact that you're an international student, times 10, right? You need to really stand out if you want to be an international student who's applying to the American medical school. So standing out means getting research, getting clinical experience, doing absolutely amazing in your classes, blah blah blah, all that things. So I think the biggest challenge for me was the regulations that Brent just mentioned. So I arrived here on campus my sophomore year, and you can't work off campus until you finish a year in college. Right? And I need to be a strong applicant at least 500 hours of clinical experience. So to do that, you have to give an off-campus job to a nurse tech or something along those lines. So I could not do that during my first year. And then and then my second year, you have to study for the MCAT. And you can't really do clinical experience in the MCAT at the same time. So those are some of the things. I do have a clinical a job giving clinical experience right now, but then there's also this barrier of having 20 hours a week. So you have to really like you guys said, organize your life so you can fit those 20 hours, and then make that work with your schedule, and then also make sure that you have the right amount of experiences by the time you send your application. So I think that's one of the reasons I'm taking a gap year before I apply, because I need to get enough to make my application robust for medical school. So.
Has anybody ever been worried that they would have to go home, partway through their education? And if you did something illegal, don't tell us about it.
I would say when I came, because I was doing psychology, I did my research and I found out that I had to continue school to be able to get a good job here, maybe master's. Some were even saying PhD, and I was like, I don't think I have the financial resources to keep going to school in that way. So that was something I had to. But I was neuroscience, so I spoke to a few people who were doing nursing, and I also met some of the professors. And because I was doing some prerequisites already in that, I was like, I'm enjoying this biology class, chemistry class. So that was how, I don't think I would have, I mean, I'm still enjoying the course, but it was because of like certain things like this that made me add it to my psychology major, because with that, well, after I spoke to some of the professors, it was like something that I was able to do after school and not have to worry about going back home like right after. So I think, yeah, it really played a role in that, like choosing a double major so that I could stay here right after school instead of like doing something I didn't want to do, like going to school, yeah.
There is a fear component here and then sometimes. I mean, personally, it's financial aid, right? Like you should think about that, or financial costs, like what your family's gonna have to pay for, the rest that you're gonna have to pay for. So how are you gonna afford that? So that kind of goes back to that work regulations that we're talking about. So yes, you're allowed to work this amount of hours, right? But maybe you gotta work a little bit more so you can help your family pay for the rest of the education. So yeah, that kind of just a little bit of fear sometimes because of that.
It's not nice to receive an email from Brent. Your semester record is at risk. Like if you work like 30 minutes extra, you can get, something like that coming your way. So that does scare you. You have to just.
It's not nice sending them either.
Yeah. Imagine.
Yeah, for me, I've only been here for like a little more than a year at this point, but I remember last year, I was kind of like at the peak of like my homesickness too, and then my grades just like weren't the best, and like so many factors on top of each other. I was like, I don't know if I'm like doing the right thing by being here, and like I feel bad because like my parents are paying like all this money, but then I'm just like not really sure what I want to like even do with my life. So I think I was like scared that I would have to go back, but also like not sure if even staying here was like the right decision. And it was kind of like a lot of things piling up on each other. But then like talking to like other like upperclassmen or like other international students as well, I think everybody kind of feels that way, but it's just a matter of like waiting it out and like just sticking to what you're doing, and then eventually you're gonna get like the results that you work for. Like, so, yeah.
Okay, slightly more hopeful or positive question. What kinds of things have made you felt welcome at Calvin or in the United States, or?
Oh, I'll start.
That should be a fast answer.
One of the things that I really like about coming here is the cultural diversity. That's one of the things that I really appreciate. Just getting to know people from all over the world. So that's what's probably been one of the things that have made me felt more welcome. Yeah. So yeah, cultural diversity, just getting to know people from different backgrounds and just learning from them. And we find out that, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like sometimes it's just like the international community is just like, they understand each other. You just said that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. So, because you get to learn from different perspectives, in different areas, and just you grow as a person, so that's good. I think that's very, very vital, right?
Yeah, I think who knew I would be friends with like a Pakistani. I think in general, I think my professors, my major, is just so culturally aware of it's social work. People are just loving and accepting. Like they know what's happening in your life, and they want to have a relationship with you. And that's exactly what my professors are. I feel welcomed every time I enter the department, every time I have a conversation with them, they remember me. They ask me questions. They ask me about my family. Yeah, so it's a nice community still. That is a hopeful thing.
There's a lot of resources at Calvin. I just especially want to mention CISD, which is just, yeah. I feel like you should give them a round of homey spot, like the people, the place. It's just being there is homey.
I have a story actually about something because I feel very welcome here. So this is around the end of my sophomore year, so the spring semester. This is my first year in person at Calvin. What do you call it? I was living in the dorms at that time, and a group of my friends and I wanted to move to the apartments, the more prestige apartments. So we thought it'd be nice. Housing is more affordable there. So what do you call? We didn't want to move in without having any furniture. Like we didn't want to move into an empty house. So then my friends suggested that I reach out to my church, see if people would donate things or something that they didn't use in their house. So I, around the middle of the semester, I sent a message to my church, to my pastor, and then he sent it out to the whole church, right? And then we were just in this short waiting period of waiting for people to respond. Around that same time, I heard back from what do you call it? I had applied to internships in the beginning of the semester, and I heard back from the University of Michigan they accepted me for an internship in the summer. But the thing was, the internship program began at the end of May, and school was ending around April. So between April and May, there's this gap period, and I needed to find some housing or something at that time. So this is a very interesting period because I needed to find housing in that month. I was not inclined to stay on campus with the housing here. I wanted to save for the housing for my summer, and also the housing here is not cheap. So I needed to find transportation to the University of Michigan. And then my church reached back and they're like, hey, we have 4 families wanting to give you furniture. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. How do I pick them up? I don't have a car. And I don't have a place to house the furniture, right? Over the summer, no place like this. So then this is now I think about it, I don't know why I sent all these things out, they all acting as go well. So as I moved in the month of April, that's exam month, I was freaking out. I had to study for exams and then figure all of this out. So what I did was I just sent a bunch of messages to all the friends the new friends I made after I came to Calvin, and then after from the church, and then literally in the span of 1 week, I had 3 friends offer to help me get all the furniture. 2 different friends offered to house it over the summer, and 4 families offered to give me housing for that 1 month. I was staying 1 week with each family that month. So it was in a week, literally, I picked up all the furniture in exam week, and then fixed the times I'd be moving to these different houses every week in that month. I mean, everything went smoothly. I even ended up finding transportation to UofM by another domestic student. So that made me feel so welcome. It also made me realize that I'm a kind of a really organized person, and I can plan a lot. And then that helped me realize that okay, there's some things I cannot plan for, and I just have to trust in God. And He really had me, showed me that I was in His arms, He was watching over me and said, "You're okay. You're in the right place right now. Just do your thing." So yeah, that made me feel very
welcome. I would say international passport and Quest made me feel welcome because I'm very when I came out, I was very shy. I don't really know anybody, so just meeting people during that time made me feel very welcome. And because you make friends with different people, just exchange numbers, and just the different events that happens on campus also makes me feel welcome as well, because you go to these events and then you meet other people, and then you get to talk to others. So yeah, just I think I made friends from like going to events on campus, and that's how I felt like homey and yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
Are there any experiences you've had in the U.S. that have been difficult or that have made you feel unwelcome? Less fun to share about, but still important.
I think I get very conscious of my accent because when I came here, it was very hard for people to understand me. Or yeah, so I feel like I had to code switch a lot of the times. Just talking to literally my South Asian friends, talking to my family, and then talking to just students on campus, professors, my supervisors, everybody. I was just always not sure where I landed with my accent. And there were times where they just sent out these general emails to like the whole, like all the employees, we should work on a communication. I felt like it was directed at me, or I felt like I was playing a part of it because they used words like articulate more, talk slow, and so I would get very conscious of just where I came from, or yeah.
I think something related to what you just shared, accent-wise, you were talking about your accent. So one of the things that I would say I've noticed is microaggressions, like these actions that people so unintentionally sometimes like they're just trying to be nice, which is okay. There's like no intentions, like bad intentions on it. But like, let's say, okay, oh, I like your accent. It's very nice, you know. It's, so this is, I guess this is kind of something that I would invite you all. This is also part of like the invitation to it. To like kind of like there's like a context behind it, right? Like why do we like sometimes see these little things and we're just thinking about them like, okay, I don't know if they're just being nice because they're actually being nice or not. Maybe just that kind of historical context that some countries have. Like for example, my country is just like, okay, there's a lot of like there's been dominion and colonialism behind it. So if you look at it that way, we've been like raised in a culture where you're just like, okay, once you come here, you watch out for that. Back home, you don't really notice that, but once you're exposed to it, then you're just like, okay, I don't know how to handle that, and it just like makes you think many things. So it's just like that exposure to this kind of things. But yeah, definitely.
So for the Nikki Lerner session, it just stuck out to me. She had said, being American, being normal is a required course, and everything else is an elective. Yep. And that's honestly how it is, especially for international students. I feel like coming in, it's more of just getting into the culture. You have to just, this is what you have to be. Like if you're not this, you will face microaggressive comments. I don't know. So I think for me especially, just accent and wanting to just have that American and I don't know, a lot of these things that I was just not prepared for, but now I think it is in my accent now, which I don't know.
I would say when I came, my roommate, she was very sweet, very nice, but then it started getting cold and I wasn't used to the cold because I'm from Ghana, so it doesn't snow back home. So she would like open the window and I was like, what? So then I'll be freezing. So then when she falls asleep and then I just like kind of and then she wakes up and then, so we kind of had that whole roommate like stuff. And I kind of talked to her about it and she passed like a very bad comment that, oh, I didn't tell you to come to Michigan. I didn't tell you to come to school here. So then I feel like that phase was very hard for me because I was freezing. And she would turn on the fan, she would open the window and it was snowing. So it was hard to sleep during that time, but then ended up leaving at some point, so I got the room to myself. So yeah, but that was very hard. Yeah, that was very hard. Like, just the weather. And yeah, getting used to that, but I'm a pro at it now.
I think one of like the big parts for me is that like when you're living in the dorms, you have one kitchen that like the whole floor shares, right? And then sometimes I get together with like my Korean friends and we want to have like a home cooked meal or like something that we would eat back home. And I feel like most Americans like might not be used to that because it does tend to like have like, I don't know, a strong smell or like just doesn't look as like pleasant, right? But it doesn't feel nice when you're like cooking something and then you'll see like somebody walk past and they'll look at you like, what is that, you know? So yeah, it kind of like makes you feel a little self-conscious, and I don't really like that because like why should my friends and I have to feel self-conscious over like wanting to feel like we're having a meal with like our family or something like that, you know? So I get it because like if somebody was making something smelly in the kitchen, I would be like looking at them too. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel nice to have to be on the receiving end of that sometimes.
I feel like another thing is just the perceptions people have about different cultures sometimes. Like, oh my gosh, the amount of times I've been confused for being a Palestinian is just so crazy. Because they're so far apart too, Pakistan and Palestine, but anyway. And then, I don't know, it's like, I feel like it's just lack of awareness too. But people, like sometimes people think that, oh, Pakistan is just a desert where terrorists live and rule, and they're like, does it snow in where we came from? Yes, it does. We have 5 seasons. I mean, it's like, I mean, obviously you didn't study geography of Pakistan growing up, but like, it's, yeah, like people just have created this image of certain places in their minds, and it's just so tiring to like I don't know, just continuously correct them.
I think one thing for me is, and like it's especially like poignant right now, is like not having equal access to opportunities. Like our professors would always send out a list of internship opportunities, and then you'd say like try to filter for international students, the list gets so much smaller. And then right now I'm applying to medical schools. There's only 155 medical schools, and less than a third of them accept international students, right? And like specifically for me, like I'm interested in a special kind of program, MD, PhD. Like that's an even smaller pool, you know, like for international students. So like things like these that like set up just not for like everybody, like that's being invited to this country, I think have not helped
And just kind of piggyback off of that, it's such a challenge to like prove your worth when like, especially like currently job seeking, it's like, why would an employer choose you over 500 other Americans who they don't even have to pay to sponsor their work authorization? So it's like, like Visaka mentioned earlier, like you have to be 10 times more just in everything to just prove that you're the one for this job.
This last question is kind of open-ended, but is there anything else that you'd like the Calvin community to know about international students or about your experiences, or anything else you'd like to share?
There's this class, Social Work 260. I know most of you are faculty here, staff here, but if you could just let people know that there is a class called Global Issues and Perspectives, it just will help you think outside of just the American lens. outside of what America's current issues are. It's so much more, I don't know, if America is about diversity, then it is important for America to learn about the historical context of diversity and all these other things. So yeah, just making sure students have resources where they feel welcomed and accepted.
I feel like I appreciate when people are curious and don't assume that they'll let you know, and don't like just come from that position. Just I like answering questions, so.
I was also gonna say, just coming to events hosted by different orgs, different student orgs, like Saturday, 5:30 tomorrow, there is a Diwali banquet that South Asian Student Association is holding. We both are leaders for it, and you would love it if you guys could come for it also. Just to learn about culture. It's a rich culture.
Yeah, I think I piggyback on what they're saying. I've had the opportunity and privilege to be around a lot of domestic students and a lot of international students. Like particularly what comes to mind is like working as an international student orientation assistant. And something I've noticed is that like it's very common that once international students get here, that they huddle together and they stay in their own group, and then the domestic students stay together. And during orientation, we encourage international students to go out and try to be involved in things that the other domestic students are doing. And just learn the new cultures. And we're not just asking you all to learn our culture. We're asking the international students to learn your culture as well. But I think it's not actually like it can be very difficult when you really know that you are the minority, and then you know that there's a lot of other people who don't look like you, right? So then I think as people in authority, like faculty, right, encouraging that kind of dialogue in your classrooms with other international students, maybe like being creative with how you make groups would be helpful, just so that internationals get more exposed to domestics, and also like domestic students get more exposed to international students. You know, like I feel like being curious is a very good thing. Like, just ask a few questions, be very just be open-minded when assuming you know something, and then that will like create opportunity for like more community between both groups.
Great. We've got time for maybe one question. Anybody want to be the one in the audience? Okay. Great.
I have a question. Do you have to declare your major and then stick to it? Is that what I heard? I'm not familiar with this.
No, you can change majors.
Okay.
Yeah. Where it gets difficult though is that if that will extend your time in the U.S., you have to apply to extend, which you can do, but it can just make things more complicated. Any other questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. You know, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. You guys did such a good job articulating some very real things and hard things, and also putting out a challenge, you know, to the community, to inviting us to come along, and really kind of have this exchange. And so Calvin is so grateful to have all of you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish there were more people in this room, because you guys really dropped some gems, you know, some really wonderful points there for the community. And I'm so proud of all of you. Truly so much.
Marcus?
I would say from the CISD, thank you to you all for utilizing the those that have. As much as we have been a blessing to you, you do the same for us. We look forward to coming in and being a safe haven away from home. So we appreciate y'all. If I could speak in my Georgia slang, y'all appreciate us.
Thank you.
Very much so. And with that, I'd like to plug this. This is a QR code for a survey and a free t-shirt for attending the session. This is for anyone who'd like to scan it on your way out of the
Thank you all for coming.